Hello, and welcome back to the Going Off Track podcast. I'm Catherine, that's Emily, and the British Grand Prix delivered in ways I don't think anyone expected going into this weekend.
No, Catherine, history was made this weekend, and it was so exciting, so entertaining. Like, this is the racing I love. And I know weather played a factor into it, but still, like, this is the racing we know and love.
Yeah, and not only did obviously weather played a factor into it, but weather played a factor in a way that was positive. We've seen weather races that have been chaotic in annoying ways, or just ways that just make things difficult. See Australia of this year or Japan 2022, but this was just enough weather for us to really have some intrigue and excitement. Specifically, one thing.
Yes, when weather causes teams to have to adjust, re-strategize,
gamble.
That's when I like it. Gamble, take a risk. That's when it's exciting. And we have some crazy things happen, like we did in Brazil last year, So
yeah.
You just have to see who makes the right gamble, who has their A game on, both for, race strategy, race engineers, and driver. Because sometimes one's on and one's not. And we see that happen a lot too. So to see it click and to see, some teams do well this weekend, it was exciting. And I think we can just stop beating around the bush. Nico Hulkenberg, Nico Hulkenberg. That's all.
I was screaming. At our camp, which I am currently ill from because that's this time of year, we do a morning news segment most days, and one of the portions is the sports report. And so in the middle of the meal, where we were in the last 10-12 laps of the race, I turned to the guy who did the sports report and I'm like, I need you to put me in as the guest Formula One correspondent. And he's like, but the race isn't over yet. I'm like, it will be, and I will have something very important to say because it's happening. I'm not going to say it, but it's happening. And it did.
No,
it was great.
I feel like this is one of those moments where I'll remember where I was when. I was traveling literally across the world. So I'm back in Texas. I left Argentina, landed in Miami, landed in Austin, and I'm so exhausted, did not sleep. So I'm watching it on my phone as my mom was driving home, and I'm crying. And she's like, "Are you okay? Did something happen? What happened to you?" I'm like, Hulkenberg's on the podium. She's like, "Oh, you an F1." And I'm like, "No, you don't understand. This is such a big deal."
Yeah.
I'm so happy for him, though. So happy for him.
Yeah, and this was just it's kind of mind-blowing. We've known, I've gone through the awkward record book portions of the podcast in past episodes, and one of the highlights for active drivers is, of course, Nico Hulkenberg's ongoing record of most races without a podium, which over 15 years on and off in Formula One full-time, I think he's done 12 full seasons, or this will be the 12th, but 239 races before his first podium is more than double the amount of races it took for the number 2 guy on that list, which was Carlos Sainz. It took him 101 races. Brazil 2019 was Carlos's first podium. So the fact that it's twice as many and that he's had a career long enough in Formula One, you forget Nico Hulkenberg drives these tractors. He's a highly capable racer if he's been able to be in the sport this long.
Yeah, and I think not a lot. I mean, let's pause on this. So I think some people were surprised when Audi really invested in Hulk and signed him to such a long contract. The only thing people could say was oh, it makes sense because he's German. But no, it makes sense because he's an insane driver who's been around for a very long time, who has gotten shit teams into the points. And he's very capable. So, that's why. He's proven throughout his entire career, he can get points even without getting on a podium. Now he can. But he gets those sneaky points. He's a very good driver. I think you're going to have to fact check me on this. He's a pretty safe driver, meaning doesn't cause a lot of accidents. But Audi's going to really build a team around him, as they should, because he's a very good driver.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, he has a number of retirements throughout his career, but you can't credit all of them to accident damage. But
right.
Not only is Audi really building this team around him and around Gabby, but he's shot the team up in the constructor standings with 15 points is a lot when
It's
you're
a
in the
lot of
basement.
points.
So they've gone from, I think they were P9 to they're currently, where did I have it? I wrote it down, P6 in the championship. So they're at like the top of the midfield right now with one race and one performance. They are 5 points ahead of Racing Bulls and Aston Martin, who are both tied with 36 points. Stake now has 41. And as we talked about with Danny Ricciardo in Mexico a couple years ago, when he had that, insane, P4 result, this is millions of dollars in prize money if Stake can hold on, and considering how hard it is to pick up points when you are in the, in the back of the pack this year, like this is a significant amount of money that they're going to be getting for next season going into a new regulation, and leaving behind a lot of the Sauber of it all that has obviously not been that strong since Audi is taking over for a reason.
Yeah. No, they're barely behind Williams now. And Williams has not been really struggling. So it wouldn't surprise me. I don't know if we'll see another Hulk podium, but I can see him and Gabby at least getting those, P6 to P10 points, because they are doing better. And I could see them passing Williams, honestly. Just Williams is really struggling right now.
This could be a very interesting fight. Obviously, we're halfway through the season, so we have a lot to look forward to the second half of the year. And you're right, we could see a very interesting battle between Stake and Williams that is really kind of hard to wrap your head around, when typically one of these teams tends to qualify a lot better than the others. Look at Hulk at Silverstone. He started P19 and managed to finish P3. Like, that's bananas.
I just want to pause on that because that's insane. Like,
yeah,
to go through the entire field. Granted, I know there was rain. I know there were safety cars. Like, I know there were things going on, which makes the climb easier. However, he stayed there. He stayed up there, which is impressive.
And he managed to keep his car ahead of Lewis Hamilton, the homeboy of Silverstone, who, we obviously we don't really know what the Ferrari upgrades are going to look like on a non-Austrian track until we get to a track where we're not going to have rain. But it's like, he still managed to keep his car there. Like, you see cars all the time, but, Isaac Hadjar, obviously he's a rookie, but he's shot up really high, and then he's moved back positions because our other cars have overtaken him. And, that is something that we didn't see yet. Yes, Lewis, ate into his lead going into the end of the race, but he was still maintaining his pace enough that Lewis didn't have enough in his Ferrari to catch up to an actual tractor of a Stake.
Yeah. Well, and I think the Sky Sports presenters, nailed it when they said, this British crowd just wants to see Lewis Hamilton make the podium, but I think they'll all be okay with it going to Nico Hulkenberg. And it's absolutely, everyone wants to see him succeed, which I think is very rare in sports, to
especially this one.
Everyone rooting for you, everyone wanting you to win, because yeah, Lewis is Lewis, right? 7-time world champion, amazing. But not everyone cheers for him. Catherine.
Hi.
I would say maybe the only other person that we could say, everyone has a soft spot for might be Yuki. But now that he's at Red Bull, maybe not. But I don't think anyone could really say a bad thing now about Nico Hulkenberg.
Yeah, I mean,
K-Max, but that's in the past, and he was there, which is so
cool. He was there support, which is so funny. So if you don't know the context, years ago when K-Mags, Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hulkenberg were not teammates, they got into a little bit of a tangle, and there's this very popular clip that floats around of Hulk interrupting one of Magnussen's interviews saying, "Suck my balls, mate." And obviously it's become a meme over the years. And then, so you go from "suck my balls, mate" to a few years ago to now, where Kevin Magnussen was in the Stake garage supporting his former teammate, because they were teammates last year at Haas. And it's so funny that, obviously water has been under the bridge for them. And they even said that when they first became teammates. But it's so funny to go from started from the bottom, now we're here. And now Kevin Magnussen just has to go to every race now because he's obviously Nico Hulkenberg's good luck charm.
It's so cute. Like, I love the little friendship. Also, they both have the cutest children, which,
Yeah.
if you haven't seen Hulkenberg's little girl, she loves F1. She loves her dad. She loves watching. She knows, like, every F1 driver. It's so cute. But she was screaming and cheering. So cute to watch.
Yeah, that was adorable. She and last year when K-Mags was driving for Haas, like the kids would always be in the garage, and that was always like the
Hmm.
cutest thing. They would help like put their gloves on, get their helmets ready. It was absolutely the cutest thing, and it's so funny to think that like of all of the drivers who are parents on the grid this year, it's Nico Hulkenberg and Max Verstappen. Like they're the only ones who have children on the grid.
Well, Max only counts for, like, 2/3 of the season. So.
Right, exactly. And that okay, I'm gonna known children.
Oh, whoa, Catherine. That's aggressive.
But
There's,
anyway,
like,
it's adorable.
There's like little itty bitty Yukis running around and no one has an idea.
Nobody knows. Obviously, that's just a joke, but who knows what's out there? Like, I'm sure there have been secret children all throughout the heyday of anything goes in Formula One
Yeah,
back in
because if we
the
think
old
about it, like last year we had K-Mags, we had Hulk, Checo has like 12 kids.
4, but yes,
That's
because
really
I
it.
googled that.
Well, no, we had this conversation a few pods ago, and I was like, I swear he has like 5 kids, and you said 3, but it's actually 4.
It is. We were in the
Yeah.
middle, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely one of like it's interesting like how and it's also like part of the whole thing where more Formula One drivers skew younger than they ever have because back in the ye old they were all in their 50s
50s, yeah. Well, and also it's not a like very conducive
lifestyle.
career to be a parent, present parent, I will say.
Yeah, present.
But who
parent.
knows? I mean, the kids are always traveling with them. The wives don't have to work if they don't want to. They can bring the kids. Like, I mean, last year I think, like you were saying, I think we saw K Mags and his family
Pretty
in the garage
often.
every single weekend. I mean, his kids are young, so they're not in school, which helps.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, really exciting for him. Also, I think it's so cute and funny that in the driver's interview, Oscar goes, "So how do you feel about your trophy that you worked so hard to get is actually just made out of a bunch of Legos that you can take apart?" And he's like, "You know what? I like Legos. My daughter can play with it." You could not say anything to Hulk on Sunday to bring him down.
No, you absolutely couldn't. And it was so funny, like really thinking about it, like Hulk hasn't had a podium in his career since I'm gonna Google it right now. And he doesn't know the process. Like Lando was the one who brought his
Yeah, he's
helmet
like, "Why do I
in.
need that?"
Yeah, what's this for? Okay, his last that's not going to give me podiums. It's been a minute since he has had a podium.
Hulk?
Yeah, Hulk. I think his last podium was in 2009 when he was competing in GP2 when he won the GP2 season, which was kind of a pre incarnation of words, Catherine, of Formula 2. So it's been a really long time since he's gone through any sort of podium procedure. The post-race interview on TV, going into the cool-down room, needing your helmet, all of those things were just
Well,
like,
he had never
it's
been
so
in a
fun.
cool-down room. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, he was on a podium for like a support series moons ago.
Yeah.
So I was so confused. I'm like, Kevin, this is his first podium. What
Yeah, no.
are you talking about?
In his racing career, his first podium. Yeah. And this also shoots him up to P9 in the Drivers' Championship, which drivers have their own incentives for finishing as high. It's not just about, obviously it is about winning the World Championship, but it's also about finishing up as high as possible. And his best performance was P7 in 2018. So he's shot up to P9 right now, and he's as we saw with Ollie Behrman, who was in P12 in the championship for half of the season last year from one race. This is a really good outcome for Hulkenberg. And going into, when we talked about the move to stake, we were a little skeptical about it because like it's stake. It was, Sauber. It wasn't a good car. And this might mean that like it's actually going to work out well in his favor, which he deserves after all this time.
No, yeah. I had this weird, like, thing just hit me, and I was like, Kevin, we're messing up our years again. Like, this is the second year of stake, and this is Nico's second season. And then I'm like, wait, no, last year it was
Haas.
Bottas and Zhou Guanyu. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God, we're going crazy. I'm going crazy.
Well, we
I don't know
are,
what
but
time
we're
it is.
also
I don't know what
very
day it is.
tired.
We're both very tired. And we will continue to say that and complain for the rest of summer. Okay, so I feel like this kind of segues into the rest of the podium, but I do have a bone to pick
Okay.
on the celebration. I thought, granted, I know it's Silverstone, and I know it's Lando, and it's his home race, whatever, but this is a really big deal for Hulk, and I think it overshadows. And, like, they just celebrated in a little corner by themselves, and Hulk was just standing there, and I'm like, you guys, like...
Yeah. I mean, he was
Shut up.
celebrating
You're out there
with...
every weekend, like... Give him something.
I was fully expecting Lando to do the champagne pop into Hulk's face.
I did too.
Like Hulk was celebrating with the stake contingent that was, you know, down below. So it wasn't like he was just like there wasn't anyone there. But no, I don't disagree with you at all. I thought that the way, you know, of all the ways that the teams have, you know, celebrated this, I thought that McLaren it really kind of said something for what they did and did not do. And yes, Lando winning his home race is great, whatever. And I think that Lando owes Oscar a fruit basket, because if Oscar did not try to screw with Max and got that penalty, which Oscar deserved,
yeah,
then Lando finishes P2.
Okay. Speaking of the penalty, let's just segue right into it.
Yeah.
Did he deserve a penalty? Yes. Was 10 seconds too harsh?
So here's the thing.
I think so. I think the 10 seconds is trying to send a message. I don't think it's necessarily for Oscar.
Yeah, no, there's two bits about it. One is a lot of the penalty rules have been made for Max, and people get annoyed when they're being applied to people who aren't Max, as they have to be applied fairly. That is a thing that people need to get over. The other part of this is the 10-second penalty has been so much more prevalent over the last 2 years, because that's what the drivers wanted. The drivers came together as an association and they asked for harsher in-race penalties for things like, you know, collisions and infringements and all of these things. So these are things that we as fans may not enjoy and the drivers may protest about, but the drivers have to remember that this started in the 2024 season because they thought that 5-second penalties were too lenient and weren't giving enough of a deterrent to certain drivers, Max Verstappen, to drive more fairly.
I think if you just look at some of the 5-second penalties this year, and what Oscar did, it's like but I know it's different within categories. Fully understand. Right. But I think just like as a fan, it's like this guy only got 5 seconds for this and he's getting 10 for this. Like it seems aggressive and egregious in that context. Which also goes back to argue like, are the penalties laid out fairly? Because if someone's like knocking someone off track and they get a 5-second penalty and he's like not slowing down quick enough or whatever, right, and he gets a 10-second penalty, like understand the safety concern 100%, but also like, you know, bumping someone and only getting 5 seconds, where's the safety concern there? I know they get points or whatever, but it's like, are those, taking the drivers out of it, are those rules and regulations laid out properly based on the severity of
it's the FIA, so the answer is no.
Well, I understand that, but you know what I'm saying. You know
I fully do. Because and here's the thing: the argument that McLaren has made without going as far as to appeal the penalty, because you know there's if they had a leg to stand on, they would have appealed, or maybe not, because you know Lando, Zach Brown's golden boy, did win the race, but. Yes, you can slow your car down if you're the car right behind the safety car. You can slow your car down to slow down the field behind you as you prepare to resume the race. That is something you can do. What you can't do, that McLaren is saying, oh, we didn't do that, is you can't slam on the brakes and they were pulling out like the data readings on his tires and the brakes and like the PSI of how much brake pressure he used. And, Oscar basically slammed on his brakes to get Max to overtake him improperly. And yes, it was a strategy that has worked for Oscar before when he's, duking out with Max on a restart. But in this case, Oscar was in the wrong here in a way that it's not like Max was doing what he used to do with Lewis, where he would literally come alongside Lewis, and they changed the rules and said you can't do that anymore because Max kept doing it so well.
Yeah. I don't know. I know that we all have to live by Max's rule book, but I take issue with how harshly certain things are penalized and how light other penalties are.
I don't disagree with you. Should Oscar have won that race? Yes.
Absolutely.
Are you and I sitting here enjoying a Lando Norris win? No. But McLaren does have the best car, and Oscar, this was the day that Oscar's mistake was egregious enough that it did not work in his favor, where typically that happens with Lando.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Fair.
Yeah, and then also Zach Brown trying to justify it on the Sky broadcast I was just like, stop talking, sir.
I do have a question for the fans. So, appealing decisions, right? You can't just appeal every single decision.
Right.
You have to pay, or you only have so many a season? I know there's something weird about it because otherwise it would be obnoxious and they would just appeal. But how does that appeal process work?
You have to pay, and I believe, I haven't looked in a while, but I believe if you appeal, and you have to pay, and if you win your appeal, I think you get your money back, and if you don't win your appeal, you lose that money. And it's like £25,000, so we're not talking like hundreds of thousands of pounds in order to appeal. But it's still like that's money that they can put to the catering budget or whatever. It probably all does go to the cost cap. I'm going to assume at least that part it does. But if they were serious, because we've had teams who have appealed, I would say, lesser infractions more, Haas has done that in the past, Red Bull has done that in the past. So if McLaren was really sure that they were in the right about what Oscar had done with that, well, it's not a brake check, but we'll call it a brake check, then they would have gone through the appeal process. So teams like to grandstand. They like to put on a story of, we were so egregiously wronged.
We were wronged, yeah.
But are we actually going to do anything about it that we would if we were truly wronged? No. And this is not just a McLaren thing. Red Bull's done it. Mercedes has done it. Every team has done it. But this is one of those things where, to me, as somebody who's media trained, it really does stand out.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of standing out, I think we might be back, Williams?
We hope.
Maybe. And then he did well after, Williams has really struggled, like I said earlier. And I think this was, I'm not going to say a comeback, but we're getting back on track.
Yeah, Alex Albon finishing in the points, and I think he finished P8. But that's where we expect Williams to be. And, Carlos was fighting with Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari in the back because it was a weird wet weather race. And that's always really funny. But I hope this does bode well for Williams. Obviously, it's great to have points in your home soil. So I think that's really good. Also, a lot of teams did gamble at the very beginning of the race, which I do want to talk about real quick, is you don't often see cars going into the pit lane after the formation lap to change tires and gamble on slicks like we did today. That happened, I think, in Hungary a few years ago, where there was a restart and everybody dove in to change their tires except Lewis. So Lewis was the only one on the start line at the restart, which was just funny because it's lights out and away we go for Lewis Hamilton only. And this was kind of similar to that, where we had a bunch of cars dive off of the grid. And I thought it was really interesting that they were willing to risk it, because as a layman watching TV and watching the spray on track, I was like, this track is still way too wet to be thinking about slicks right now. And I really want to know what the teams who did change their tires were thinking to, say that, oh, that's what we're going to do. This is the best option for us, because I thought it was way too risky.
Yeah, whenever those decisions are made, a la Monaco with Fernando Alonso in 2023.
Yeah.
2022 maybe. 2023. Yeah. Like they went for selection, it's like it's too wet, and then it's just like, but I mean, I think they're just in their minds, they're like, this is our gamble. Like we just have to go for it. But,
yeah, I mean, they put Lance Stroll on softs, and he managed to cut his way through the field. He was like, his lap times were like 10 seconds faster. But I think it was really interesting that of all of the cars that did that, because there were a number of them, you got like the percentage of amount of success was very limited, and it was not the cars that you would think would be successful on that gamble.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
Yeah.
It gave us some intrigue and a lot of entertainment.
It sure did. So besides that, we did have some not so great performances this weekend.
Yeah.
Per usual in weather, our rookies struggled.
Yeah,
Big
they
time.
did.
So they all DNF'd, except for Ollie, who himself did not have a great weekend because he's getting up there in the points on his super license.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to make that mistake once where you overtake under red flag conditions and you get slapped in the face with a 10-place grid penalty. But they gave him 4 points on his super license the first time and another 4 this weekend, so he has 8. He's behind Max now.
Yeah, that's... And they'll probably keep coming. I mean, I don't say that in hopes that something bad happens, but like, I don't know. I think he's struggling a little bit. All the rookies struggled. It's just not a good weekend for them. And then poor Franco, like this kid just cannot catch a break.
He was supposed to start from the pit lane and couldn't get his car into gear, and like that would be one thing if Flavio Briatore hasn't been vocally saying, I want Valtteri Bottas in my car yesterday.
And like Toto's come out and said, yeah, he keeps calling me about Bottas.
Yeah, it's like, this is, I mean, the writing was on the wall when Franco became the reserve driver at Alpine. Like, we kind of knew that this was going to happen. We saw this coming, and it's so unfortunate. I mean, you were in Argentina where there's such great fans of Franco there, and it's like he literally
advertises everything. He's on every billboard, he's on every commercial. They love him. It's super exciting. Everyone's so excited. And when I asked him, I was like, how do you feel about him being at Alpine? And they're like, well, Flavio's gonna screw him, but like he has a seat. And that's all I mean, yeah, we've said that a bunch. Like, it's really too bad what's going to happen to his career because of Flavio. It really is, and for him taking over. And honestly, I forgot all about Jack. Where is he?
Where's Jack?
Jack disappeared into the sunset.
I mean, he's in the back of the garage in a closet, waiting with his race suit on. But yeah,
if he's lucky.
Yeah.
But it's just really sad, especially like when stuff like this happens. Like the car not going into gear literally is not his fault. And it's going to be looked at as, oh, you didn't even start, and we're plucking you from the seat and putting someone else in.
Yeah, it's like that meme that everybody has been using since Danny replaced Nick DeVries from I think like endurance racing, of like the guy yanking the driver out of the car so that the other driver can come in.
Yeah,
it's so unfortunate. It's like, Bottas, don't do it. Like, I know it gets you back in the car and it gets you racing reps, but like, don't do it. It's not worth it.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah.
All right. Let's get into our Silverstone predictions. Another weekend where we absolutely sucked. I'm going to give us a pass on this, though, because of the weather, and these ones are really hard to predict, a la Hulk on the podium.
Yep.
So we both picked Lando for pole. Interestingly enough, neither of us picked him to win. But Max ended up on pole, which I love when Max does Max things and just
Can we talk about that pole lap for a minute? Because I don't know where that came from, and that was one of the greatest qualifying laps I've ever seen. It's like, I know it came from like their downforce configuration and the wing that they used, and like they gambled on that, and like Max still would not have won the race from pole because of how they set up the car, but like that lap was a thing of beauty.
And I think I texted you. I was like, I hate to say this, but I love when Max does Max. Like,
yeah, honestly. You did.
But yeah, so Max ended up on podium,
and on we pole, picked Lando.
Not on the podium. We picked Lando for our podium. It ended up being Lando, Oscar, Hulk, which is so exciting. Would have loved an Oscar, Lando, Hulk, but Hulk's there. Yes, so it's great. You had Oscar, Max, Lando. I had Oscar, Lando, Lewis, which I was close. Lewis got P4.
Yeah, he was in the wings.
But yeah, and then Dominic, good old Dom, my British friend who lives in Mendoza, and we spend every 4th of July with him, which I just think is so funny because he's British and we're American. He had Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, and Lando Norris, which is wildly incorrect. So, sorry, Dom. And then P10, which is always impossible to pick, it was George, which we never would have picked him anyway. You had Gabby, and I had Carlos Sainz. So, we'll never get there.
Nope.
It's fine.
Nope, we're so bad at this.
We pick biggest surprise and who's going to do a dumb. Catherine, you said Williams is going to bounce back. Albon did get in the points, so I'll give you 50% on that. I said Steak is going to kill it. I think I said they're going to get double points, but I said they are going to kill it, and they definitely killed it. Hulk got on the podium. I think Hulk's one podium point is going to be more than they would have gotten with 2 cars anyways, so 100%. I'm going to give myself full points for that.
Yeah.
And who's going to do a dumb? Catherine said that Ferrari upgrades are not going to translate to a normal track. I think we carry this on to the next race because weather is not fair, so that will be your biggest surprise for the next one because that's the first time we'll really see the upgrades on a normal track. Probably. And then I said no one because I was in such a positive mood. And LOL, I was wrong.
All of the rookies.
All of the rookies. We have been pretty light on the rookies. I feel like we need to step it back and really be hard on them again.
But I mean, honestly, like the rookies have, by and large, done their job.
They've performed, yes, I agree.
Kimi Antonelli has outshined the rookie class for the most part. Isaac Hadjar has had his moments, but they really haven't done, by and large, dumb things, give or take a couple of incidents. So, like, throughout the first half of the season, they have really proved to be a lot more capable than I think a lot of us were expecting.
That's fair. Yeah. But we still have a lot of season left.
There's so much season left.
So much left. Okay. Loved Silverstone. Always loved Silverstone. Always delivers. Super exciting. Oh, one thing we didn't mention. This is the first time in, like, a lot of years that Lewis Hamilton was not on the podium at Silverstone.
This broke a 10 or 11 year streak. My friend Danielle, friend of the show, she's quite upset that he did not make the podium. And I'm like, yes, but Nico Hulkenberg. But she's also a really big Lewis fan, and she hopped onto the Lewis train in Lewis's post 2021 era. So when Lewis has not been the great driving, savant that he was earlier on in his career, and so she's really backing him and really wants to see him successful at Ferrari, and we all do because Ferrari is kind of where champion careers go to die. But it's it was very unfortunate that Lewis's streak, especially at his home race, has ended.
I know, he just has a special spark in Silverstone, but
he really does.
P4 is, like, not bad, at least, like, and if he's gonna lose to someone, I'd want it to be Hulkenberg. If it was anyone else, I'd be pissed, but I'm like, you know what? It's okay.
It's Hulk. Yeah, and my final thoughts are, if this is the first Formula One race you are seeing after watching the Formula One movie, this was a special treat for you.
Yes.
This was great. I think this was a great entry into Formula One if this is your first race. Not all races are like this. Not all races can be bangers.
Big warning. This is not every race.
This is not typical, but this does give you a taste of the chaos that you can typically expect most weeks.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, don't watch Monaco and think this is what you're getting, because it
Yeah.
won't be.
Monaco is
So.
different.
Yes, just a little bit.
All right, so now before we go, we welcome the return of Emily's off-track moment. We haven't really had a lot of like significant off-track moments lately, and also we've been a little busy, you traveling, me running a summer camp, to really see what's been happening off-track. But I feel like A, we haven't looked very closely, but B, I also don't think there has been anything significant until this weekend.
Yes, so my off-track moment of the weekend is like off on track adjacent, we'll say, in the garage, in the paddock. Um, Aston Martin and Mercedes hand delivering champagne to the stake garage to help them celebrate. They like didn't have enough champagne, weren't planning on celebrating, wanted to celebrate, so the other teams brought champagne, which I just think is so cool. And I love sports moments. I love sportsmanship. I love when other people can recognize big historic moments. So it was very heartwarming. I love to see that.
Yeah, I loved that. I thought that the way that, like we talked about earlier, the way the entire grid, barring McLaren, really came in and celebrated Hulk, and, you know, Max being the first guy out of the car to congratulate him. All of those moments I thought were just like, this is why we love this sport, and especially this era of Formula One, because this isn't something that you would see typically in some of like the motor racing heyday of the, you know, 60s, 70s type of thing. So
Right.
I think it's something very significant for now, and I love it.
Yeah, and even like Lewis Hamilton, again, amazing guy, right? Friend of the show, we'll say, because I don't hate him.
From your side.
Even he posted on his Instagram story, like Hulk, he reposted Hulk's story with like a congrats or whatever. And to have someone like that acknowledging him publicly on how big of a deal this is, like, is super cool to see. I think everyone really respects Hulk, and he's been a mainstay, not necessarily like on the podium, but he's been a mainstay in F1 for so long. A lot of these guys have raced against him for many, many years. So to see all of them get excited is really cool.
Get this man into a better car. Like,
I know, I want to see what he does when Audi actually takes over and the team like might be good. Like, will he have a podium again?
Will he win a race?
Whoa, okay, that's a lot.
I know, that's a lot. I mean, we've been waiting for so long.
Honestly, anything could happen in 2026 because of new regulations. Like, the McLaren car is going away, the Red Bull's going away, the Ferrari's going away. They'll all have brand new cars. They'll be smaller cars. It's gonna be so much different. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. All right. Well, that has been our recap of the British Grand Prix, as we like to call it, Silverstone. We do have Spa in 2 weeks. Also, we will have our episode coming out of the F1 movie. Hopefully, you guys have all seen it by now, because my parents have seen it, which means you guys have to have seen it, because my parents don't go to the movies and they don't keep up with anything pop culture. Love them to death. But yeah, so stay tuned for that, and then we'll be back for Spa, or the Belgian Grand Prix to be official. But thanks for going off track with us, guys.